Hi, everybody. I wanted to welcome you to our first author interview. It's with Pat Sheveland. Did I say that right?
Sheveland, but
Sheveland.
Sheveland,
Okay.
tomato, tomato.
Okay. And the reason I'm doing authors this month is because it's all about empowering women and letting women know that we can do the things that we do, even though we have busy schedules. And I identify with Pat on a lot of different levels. We're both professionally credentialed coaches. We both actually went through the same training program, and that's how we met. And we both are caretakers for our elderly mothers. So I reached out right away to Pat and said, hey, would you like to be a part of this? And she graciously agreed. So Pat, I wanted to start off with one thing with you and ask you if you were to talk to somebody who was thinking, well, I've always wanted to write a book, but life happens and it's just too busy. What would you say to them?
Oh, just go do it. There are so many different ways to write a book. Now, this last book, I was actually working with a book coach, and I actually wrote the book in 9 weeks. So that's totally possible. My first book, which was more of a memoir, took me probably a year, I would say, and I self-published and did everything. But I had to do a lot of research because I didn't know anything about what I was doing. It was, going by the seat of my pants. But I would say anybody we all have stories within us, and sharing those stories are so important, and helping others through our stories. Mm-hmm. Go do it.
So tell me, how has your life journey brought you up to this point where you wrote this book? And by the way, I just read snippets of it, and it's fabulous. The breathe, that's my mantra anyway, and it's in my first book that I wrote. So I was like, oh, I understand this.
Yep.
So tell me a little bit about it, and tell me about your journey up to this point of writing this book, and just your journey in life, period.
Wow. Okay, so you have 62 years to condense into a very short story. People will ask me, did you lose a child? Because the 2 books I have written both have to do with child loss. And the answer is no, I have not experienced the death of a child. Thank God. But I was born into a mother who was a grieving mom. My mom, her third child, my brother Greg, died before I was born. And so she had 2 children older than Greg. One was 15 months old, one was 3 years old. Greg was born. He was not sick. It was just totally unexpected. He got his baby shots at the age of 4 months. And by that night, he had died. He got severely sick and probably had an anaphylactic type reaction to his shots. Then 3 years later, she had my other brother. And then 3 years after that, she had me. So my mom had a lot of buried grief. And by the time I came, my family was just, it was a very quiet household, very subdued. There wasn't a lot of laughter, but we never talked about Greg. So I didn't even know I had this brother until I was probably 5 or 6 years old. And when I found out about him, we still never talked about him, but I was a curious child. And as a coach, that is probably one of my strong suits, is my curiosity. Started when I was 5 or 6, and I always felt this deep connection with this brother that I never knew. Well, I've always been the person that people would come to and share what they're feeling. I think people are just comfortable with me. So I've experienced a lot of death in family members since I was a child, but also being there for my friends and being there for my family members. I became a registered nurse, so I spent a lot of time back especially in the 80s, in the death and dying space. Then I went into corporate America and worked in a corporate job where I was an executive in an insurance industry and workers' compensation. Still helping to heal people, but kind of out of that death and dying space. And then I don't know what happened. All of a sudden I had this knock on my head from the universe is all I can explain it as. And I realized that I had a greater soul's purpose here, and my purpose was to help grieving families, but really focusing a lot on mothers in their grief. When I started coaching, Judy, when you and I went through our coaching program, of course, we had to start our coaching businesses, so to speak, to get coaching clients, right? We had to have so many. And when I hung my shingle on the door, it was just so interesting that my first 2 clients were grieving moms. One had been grieving for 30 years, and another one had been 5 years. And it was like, wow, this is just so interesting, because I certainly wasn't seeking that out or thought that that was something that was going to be a niche that I was going to work in with coaching, but it just kind of showed up that way. And so I started working with them and helping in that healing process and working through a lot of the buried grief that goes on when someone loses a child, especially for moms. Then I volunteered at a children's camp. I'd started doing that out of the blue, which wasn't my MO before that. And I recall specifically one camp where I was volunteering, and it was the parents. And there were 2 moms and dads, and then 1 single mom in our group. And all of them had experienced the death of their child. And I watched this excruciating, raw grief. And usually as a nurse and as a coach and all of that, I'm able to sit and hold the space for people and not let it go inside. But I started driving home after that particular camp, and out of the blue, I just started sobbing and crying. And this epiphany came over me that, wow, those people were my parents back in the 50s, and the kids at the children's grief camp who were there because a sibling had died, I was one of those kids, only I was in my late 50s. So that's really started my process of having a great conversation with my mom. And when my brother would have turned 60, she and I spent a lot of time together for me to help peel away the layers of the onion, so to speak, and help unearth my brother's spirit from the tomb, so to speak. She had never talked about him, and so we spent quite a bit of time just really talking about what went on with her, going through the buried guilt, the grief, the abandonment that she felt, all these things that are so common with grieving moms. And we were able to really do some great healing together. And so I took that and said, I think that there's something here that can help others. And I decided to write a book with taking my mom's story. And as I was writing that first book, many, many women, as I shared with them that I was writing this memoir, so to speak, started telling me their stories of their child loss. And so they granted me the permission to take their stories, and I incorporated all of them into that book. So it really is a book of the stories of tragedy, but also the stories of faith, and how so many women were able to move on in their life, not move out of the grief, not move on completely from the grief, but to move forward, to step forward and have real fulfilling lives. And then there was this other subset, similar to my mom, where they had difficulty for so many years. So that was my first book back in 2000. I don't even know when I published it, 2016 maybe. And then and that's called The Morning's Light, Life After Child Loss. And then I just kind of went on into life, was done with my corporate career after 25 years and figuring out, okay, what am I going to do? And I, again, heard the universe knock, and I ended up working for a gentleman by the name of Master Chunyi Lin. And his wife and their small organization learning Qigong. So I actually helped them create their school, which is a licensed private school in the state of Minnesota, where we teach people Qigong, which is energy medicine, and really to help healing, not just physically, but emotionally and spiritually. So I knew that I was there for a couple of years to help them get their school off the ground and get it very stable. But it was also for me to be immersed into becoming a healer, which I would have never called myself that in the past, but to become a healer and a healing guide, and to help my coaching clients who are grieving family members, especially grieving moms. So I've got infused all of that inside of me. And now, just this week, I have hung my shingle out again, and I am totally focusing on my grief coaching and infusing Qigong in that too. So I'll do some Qigong things on the side, but it's mainly working with grieving parents and especially grieving moms.
So would you say that the 2 years that you studied and helped them build that school was a way for you to empower and heal yourself enough to take on this next big role for you?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Physically, emotionally, and just learning the tools and the depth of being so immersed into. Master Lin is a spiritual leader, and he reminds me of someone similar to the Dalai Lama. You're in his energy, and it's so hard to describe how he infuses such unconditional love. And yes, we all have healing. We all have grief, whether it's the death of someone, or it may be, divorce. It could be our pets, right? It could be like you and we are watching our mothers deteriorate before our eyes as we're caring for them. And to me, that's a whole grieving process of itself.
Oh yeah, yeah.
As you all know.
It's a different journey than any other journey that I've ever experienced.
Yeah.
I've experienced a lot of people passing on and dying in my life. So, between 27 and 30, I had 6 deaths. So it was just like, you were bombarded with it. But this is totally a different journey.
Yeah.
And bearing witness is how I always say. It's bearing witness to their own journey. Yeah.
And their own grief.
Yeah.
The body fails them. The mind fails them. There's a bit of fear because of the unknown. Yeah.
Yeah. A lot of deep conversations around that.
Yeah.
And very blessed. And at the same time, it's challenging. There's no doubt about it. I'm not gonna downplay that. It is challenging, but I'm very blessed to be able to bear witness and be a part of it. And it's come out in my first book, as you know, and so then as I'm writing this next series myself, I'm like, wow, okay, so there's little snippets and stories in there as well.
Yeah.
What I'd love to know is, how can people that may know somebody who's grieving, or may know of a mother who has lost a child, how can they reach out to you? I'm going to put your contact information in the comment sections and everything, but I also want you to tell them what is the best way to reach out to you to set up, because you can do virtual coaching. That's the beauty of what we do. We don't do coaching one-on-one and face-to-face anymore. It's all, most of our businesses, for both of us, are all virtual. So how can they get in touch with you, and what's a session like with you?
Okay, so to get in contact with me, the easiest way is to go to my website, Pat Sheveland at msn.com. That's the easiest, peasiest way. Just send in a contact. I want to reach out to you. I'm also on Facebook and My Facebook, which is my private page, is pretty much my professional page too. I don't really discern between that. So that's under Pat Huss, Huss Sheveland. So you can reach out to me that way also. And I'm freely giving out my phone number, 952-210-3767. So it's multiple ways that you can reach me.
Say the number.
Google me, you'll find me.
Okay. But say the number again, 952.
952-210-3767.
Okay.
My cell phone and text, leave a message, and I'm more than happy to set up time to talk to people.
So, of course, when you're looking at doing sessions and everything with individuals, do you do like the 15-minute consult, or how are you doing that? Are you doing, a paid 15-minute, or how is that going to work for you?
No, actually, people can go onto my website and they can sign up on my calendar. And usually the first conversation, I don't give it a time limit. It's free. It's just a strategy call. Basically, that's just for us to get to know each other, for me to ask a lot of questions and to listen a lot. And just to see if there's a good fit there. And I actually, this is, the book isn't in print yet, but it's in.
Gorgeous.
Yeah, it is. But people can actually sign up and get a free, electronic copy of my book from my website too. I'm giving them it away. Basically because I have my coaching as a companion program. And so the Breathe method is basically what I do, is that I work with people, and it's, we go through all these steps that I consider the Breathe program, and using different coaching tools and other tools that I've learned through Qigong, and just through working through with a lot of parents and working in the grief space and death and dying space for so long. Basically what I've done is I have been able to observe and understand what women and men, but especially women, to successfully be able to live a life where it's still fulfilling and they feel like they have a purpose. I know what are the things, there's commonalities that all these women who have successfully grieved have done. And I also know the flip side of many people that I know and have, and not that I've worked with, but friends and family members and different people that I've seen where grief has been a failed grief for them. And there's commonalities of what they did or did not do. So I took all the stuff where there's a real successful grieving process and put it into this book. And so then it's like working with any coach, setting the agendas and me asking a lot of questions, my clients committing to what they want to do in terms of their action. And as you know, coaching, 50% of it is awareness and understanding why we do what we do or don't do. And the other 50% is action oriented. So that's what I work with them, is to help them find the appropriate actions that work for them. So it's one-on-one. It's very tailor-made to each individual. So
here comes my next question. Let's go through the Breathe, just the acrostic, and tell me what it stands for.
Oh, you're going to test me now.
I've got it actually pulled up if you need me to.
Yeah.
The B is being clear on who you are today.
Being clear on who you are today. That's very important, because when we experience significant life changes, especially the death of someone that we're very close to, whether it's the child or a spouse or whoever, sibling, we change. We're changing all the time, but clearly things have changed. If you're a grieving mom and you were taking care of your child who was ill, all of a sudden when that child died, what happens? What's your purpose in life? So it's being clear and really understanding what are your strengths, You know all this, and any coach out there, there's a lot of different strength tools out there, and I'm just using the VIA character because I like that one. And I also have just recently been trained in assessing human design, so I can actually do some assessments to see who are we kind of born into based upon our birth date and the time of birth. And so that's a very interesting piece to get in there. So that's, being clear on who you are, because it's hard to step in to figuring out what the next step in your life is unless you know who you are today versus who
And
you
the
were.
R is reimagining your life.
Reimagining your life. So that is taking those steps of figuring out, what do I want my life to look like 6 months, a year from now?
Okay.
And that starts the basis.
The E is engaging your tribe, which I just love.
I know, this is like my favorite part of it. We talk about being tribes, and that can be a cutesy way of girlfriends and that type of thing, but I really go into really what the necessity is of having a tribe and walk through how you choose the people, because they may not be family members, because your family members are grieving and going through their own process. So that's what we do, is we figure out who's the tribe and how you engage in the tribe, and actually commit to a treaty, so to speak, so that that your tribe and the people, your support network, is very strong.
And then the A, I think the A is probably my favorite, but that's because I believe in it the most. Assessing your own inner healer.
Yep. And that's where my Qigong comes in and all of that. But we all are born a healer of ourselves. And that is so important to figure out what are the things that we need to do. We can't depend on other people to help heal us. We can have support systems, we can have medical systems. I'm a registered nurse, so I certainly am involved in Western medicine, but I'm very deeply involved in the Eastern philosophy of medicine. And we are our own healers. Our body, we were born with such amazing technology within us. And so it's like, how do we access that? What are the things that we need to do to help us heal physically, emotionally, spiritually, if that is something that people are interested in?
Yes. And then the T is transforming your view.
And that is, and I got a lot of that from coaching grieving moms, and my own mom, is a lot of times we have stories that were created at the time, and when you take a look at it, when it's in the rearview mirror and you have a coach asking you some questions, all of a sudden it's reframing what happened. So my mom's abandonment issues were, when we started going through it and walking through the actual process of what really occurred then, they had 4 people die within, I think, a 6-week period, my brother being one of them, but they were all immediate family members on my dad's side of the family, his grandmother, his sister, his nephew, and his son. So real hard for my dad to be that support network, right? So that's where once she understood that, then it was like, oh, there was some healing and some forgiveness that could go through her being, and understand that it wasn't about people abandoning her. It was, they didn't have the capacity.
Yeah. And then the H is honoring your child.
And that, and this is because this book is about child loss, but it's any time that you have a significant death and you're dealing with that, people tend to shy away of saying their names. Anybody who's gone through it, you've probably gone through this too, because you've experienced significant deaths in your life. People get, in our society, death is like a dirty word. And that's why I'm here, is I'm saying death is not a dirty word. Death is a part of life. And we need to honor the person who died and create ceremony, whatever it is, create some kind of way to keep saying their name and keeping their spirit and keeping them close to us, versus burying them like they did with my brother and not be able to acknowledge that he even existed.
And then the E in breathe is embracing change.
Yes. And so the last part of my breathe program is to help people figure out what's my purpose. What's my purpose? What am I going to do? And we figure out where you tap into and find what is that soul purpose or life purpose that's sitting within you, because this is what I know. This is the truth that I know and have seen across everyone I've ever met and seen the healing occur, is when we have a purpose that's outside of ourselves and we start focusing externally and helping others, we heal. That's the bottom line. So it's figuring out what is that purpose. It may be that you have more children that you're taking care of. It may be like you and I, that our mothers and our parents become our purpose, the caregiving. It may be for some moms that they get up on stages and talk about their child who died from heroin overdose laced with fentanyl. And, I mean, whatever that purpose is, it could be just living your good life with your family and being there and keeping them, happy and content. So that's that last piece, is figuring out what that next step is after this initial period of healing.
Is there anything from the book that you would like to share, or an excerpt, or anything that you want to say, this is like one of the key pieces to it?
I'm going to go back to, that's a good question. I think the key piece here is we need to be kind to ourselves. We tend to judge ourselves when we're going through grief, or people may unknowingly say things to us that may take us aback. And we need to be kind. We need to be kind to ourselves in grief, and to know that there's no cookie cutter process. This is a great self-help breathe program. It's a great program. I mean, I'm pretty proud of it, right? But there's no cookie cutter process. So this is like a template of try it on, see what works, what doesn't, and be kind to yourself. Give yourself the time. There is no timetable in grief.
Right.
But the bottom line is it's taking those first steps forward. And there are people out there like myself, Judy, all kinds of people who are willing to help you and stand beside you and to help you through this very difficult journey of grief and life-changing events like that. So be kind and reach out. Don't
I would
hide out.
say allow those waves to happen.
Yep. Yep.
I like that. Be kind. Be gentle
Yeah.
to yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think that's one of the most difficult things that we do, is to take care of ourselves. That self-care is huge. And yeah.
And as women,
It's the first thing that goes.
we take it all on. We take it all on. We're the nurturers, and we feel like all of this is our responsibility, and we don't want other people to see us hurting, because we don't want people to think that we're weak, right? Or we don't want them to be sad for us. We just really have a lot of this stuff that's been placed upon us for generations after generations, and it's okay to be selfish. Selfish isn't a dirty word either. It's reframing, what do these things mean? It's taking care of yourself. That's a very cool thing.
Yeah.
Put on your own oxygen mask first.
Yeah. And know where your breaking points are.
Yep.
And I think that's really important, and that's probably one of my biggest downfalls is, I forget to rip that S off my chest. I had a doctor who said that to me, and I love my doctor for that. That was her statement to me was, the last time I knew, you should not have that S on your chest, rip that sucker off.
I love that. I love that. Yep.
And ever since then, I was like, oh yeah, that thing got back up there again. Let me rip that off.
It's a challenge to change that our wiring that way. And I know people always say, "Oh, Pat, you're doing so much. You're so busy, and you're doing." And for me, I've gotten to the point where Qigong has been wonderful for me because I meditate. I know how to bring myself into my inner peace. In fact, I'm starting a webinar with that in about an hour and 15 minutes for people. So I know, but it's taken those couple of years, as you talked about, what helped me in the healing process. That helped me to get grounded and know when to get grounded. But I'll be perfectly honest, I flip out all the time too. I have those times,
Yeah.
It's just, we're human beings, and I just have to be kind to myself and say, okay, so you messed up on that one, or maybe you're a little too snarky on this one, or that's
Yeah.
humanness. Be kind.
And it's a huge one for us to allow ourselves to have those moments where we're gonna, lose it, and learn to laugh it off. I always say, okay, if I can't laugh at myself, then I can't laugh at anybody else. I gotta laugh at myself first, and
Yep.
I can get just as snarky as the next person. So, it's just learning and progressing through it, and allowing, just allowing those moments. And
And find
sometimes,
that tribe. Find that tribe. The
yeah,
2 to 3 people that you can call on and say, oh man, I feel like I'm really gonna be
yeah,
diving deep here. I need, someone to throw me a line so I can crawl out of this crevice of crap.
yep, yeah. And the other piece I always say is, sometimes you don't want to cry around those that are all grieving as well, because they need to see you as that strong person. So that's when you need to figure out, okay, I need to take that walk,
Mm-hmm.
and let those tears come out at that point, and then come back, but also let them know, hey, I cry, I'm human. And have
And
those moments.
yeah, and I think that's really important. In fact, today I just met with, I'm doing a funeral on Wednesday as an officiant, and meeting with, this woman who's been married for 50 years to her her first love, and her daughter. And I'll tell you, when the tears started flowing, because it's so raw, he just died on Friday, my eyes will well up with tears. I
Yeah,
feel the lump in my throat. And I think it's okay, because they know that we care. We care.
yeah. But in the same aspect, when we're caring for our moms, there's those times where we can't be that, and that's when I'm saying, like, learn to take those walks.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. There's times that, I just,
Or suddenly I have to take a shower.
yeah. It can be so challenging. And I just, with my mom, and I think this happens with any of our relationships, I am so thankful. I'm so grateful that she has been around for 95 years, because we had a very challenging relationship. I am not like her. I didn't follow suit like what she thought maybe my life should be. And so we were like oil and water for a long time. And for us to be able to have these, she waited for me. I'm so excited that we could really heal our relationships. And I know that helped her in healing her own self.
Yeah.
Because she had guilt and stuff, that just came out sideways with me. And I was a punk, not the youngest kid, and kind of punky. So, but she granted me this. So I'm totally grateful, because now so when her time does come, I will grieve, absolutely. But I will know that there is so much lightness, because we were able to clean that up here on earth.
Well, I just want to say a deep bow to you for what you're doing and what you're going to be doing. It's powerful. It touches my heart in a deep way. So kudos to you.
Thank you.
Any
Thank you.
last words before I end the recording? And okay, I'm gonna make sure everybody has your contact information. So I'm gonna
Okay.
stop there.